Welcome back to another video, and today we are doing a first for me, which is doing a double review of two palettes that I have been trying recently, and these are two higher end palettes, so that is why I thought it was fitting to put them into one video. So the palettes we are talking about is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Fall Romance palette and the Dior Backstage Silver Essentials palette. And in today's review video, I will be first taking you through about my thoughts about the palettes and how I have felt about them. And then at the end of each section, there will also be swatches of the palettes. And I think if you have watched my reels, then these are the swatches that I have filmed for those reels. So there is some repeat content here, but I thought that it is quite useless to do swatch videos again from palettes that I have already done then. So a bit of recycled content there. But first let's go through the ABH palette. So this is the Fall Romance, and this is a palette I believe that, I'll move myself here. So this is a palette that you have probably already seen a lot. I think this has been quite popular release from ABH, and this is sort of her big palette launch this year, sort of season. And this is what the palette looks like. So first about the packaging and what this includes. So this includes 12 shades, and this is in this sort of, I don't think my phone camera will be able to pick it up, but it has this sort of like a fur soft packaging. And maybe a bit of a concern first is that how I will be able to keep this clean, because I think this was also a critique in the old ABH palettes that were in the sort of soft velour packaging, that they did get quite dirty easily, but so far I have been able to keep this clean, and I hope it will remain that way. But regarding the shades themselves, so as you can see, we have a good mix of matte and shimmer shades. There is this one brown up here called Ember, so this has a bit of a sparkle in them, but those aren't visible once you apply this to the eyes. And I think this has quite even matte to shimmer ratio, so if you're a person like me who prefers the half and half ratio, then this is definitely a palette for you in terms of the shade formulations. Now regarding the formula itself about this palette, so this isn't as, so the old ABH palette, which I have the sultry palette still in my collection from, those had quite a lot of kickback. And I do say that this new formula, it doesn't have as much kickback as the older formula had, but it's still quite a powdery formula. So definitely when you're using the mattes, then remember to sort of tap your brush before applying to the lid, because this will otherwise mess up your under eyes. And this is a palette that I would definitely still first apply the eyeshadow and then apply your base products, because it can get a bit of a messy. Then about the shimmers. So the shimmer formula, as I have tried to make some comparisons between the shimmer formula of these and the shimmer formula, for example, of the sultry that I still have in her sort of old format. And I do think the shimmers are a bit drier feeling compared to the sort of original ABH formula. However, that doesn't mean that they perform less, that there's less of a performance in them. I do believe that the shimmers in these sort of have, they are not as perhaps opaque as particularly some of these more golden shimmers, as maybe some golden shimmers in her older palettes. However, I think that because they aren't as opaque, they do have a bit of adaptability to them. So particularly, for example, this crown shade in here that sort of has a bit of a shift from this sort of basic gold to a perhaps even more yellowy or greenish gold. So it means that this adapts a bit. So for example, I did an all green look using this shade and then the two green shades, and this actually ended up looking as if I had used a green shimmer, even though this palette technically doesn't have a green shimmer. And also similarly this one, so this is more of a topper shade that also adapts depending on what sort of matte you apply it on. So that is just something that you should also consider when you're using this palette, that some of the shimmers, while they don't have as opaque base that maybe some other comparable shimmers, but that does also bring versatility to this palette. Now I think from the shades to the color story. So as you can probably see from the color story, this is a very sort of, it's a dark neutral palette with some pops of like dark colors. So, however, for me, I think this has been a surprisingly versatile palette. So initially when I got this, I was a bit doubtful that well, was it a bit of a dud buy from her. However, I have been very long time, I have wanted to buy an ABH palette in her newer formula, in her like new format, in this kind of packaging. However, the color stories in the previous launches haven't exactly caught my eyes. So in terms of color story, this was the first one that I said that, okay, well, I'm gonna now take the hit and try it. And if I don't like it, then at least I know that the new ABH formula isn't for me. But so for me, what has really surprised is that it has more versatility to it. So you can get sort of very sort of basic neutral look with this one, but you can also get, like I said, a more green toned look using these two green shades and then this crown shade. You can also get a very pretty like purple pink leaning looks with this one. The only thing that you should consider, especially if you're someone with a fair skin like me, that all the looks will be pretty dark. So even though it has this more sort of light blending shade, this is the only lighter blending shade that it has. And even this one does build quite quickly. So something that you should be also aware of is that these mattes, especially, they do pack a punch. So if you want to get a very light coverage, you really have to use a light hand, because the mattes build up really quickly. For darker and medium skin tones, I do think this is actually a very good palette option. If you're looking for this sort of like very neutral fall palette, then I would definitely recommend this. So what's my final verdict about this one? I think this is definitely a hit for me. Is this the new sort of modern renaissance of ABH? Maybe. Well, I'm gonna let you be the judge of that, because I do think that this is something that specifically caters for more medium to dark skin tones, which I think is a very good thing, because a lot of palettes don't, they only seem to cater for very much fair skin toned people, and I think that is something that should definitely still needs work in the makeup industry. However, even for someone with a lighter skin tone, I can make this work, and I have liked all the looks that I have made with this. And what especially I think makes this a positive surprise for me is that there are several kinds of looks that I can get with this palette. So for me, this is definitely a recommendation if you like the color story, and if you just take into consideration that it is very sort of has more of this darker vibe. The only thing that I would change from this is that it has these two green shades, the tones, and then this twilight shade. And these are way too similar shades to be included in one palette. If you look the reel that I have made with this, that I made the green look, you can't really, when you layer the two greens, they look like you layering the same color. So that is my only critique for this palette, is that the other green should have been changed to some other shades. But other than that, there are no repeat shades in this palette, and definitely in terms of the formula and finishes, this is definitely a recommendation if it's something that you want to get. So next palette is a palette first for me. So Dior is one of those higher end luxury brands that I usually associate of these old school department stores brand, as that for me at least haven't been that exciting. Especially if considering that they do actually cost quite a lot. So a Dior quint goes between 60 and 70 euros, and you only get like 5 shades in them, and the color stories usually aren't anything that exciting. And if you then just want a basic neutral palette, you can get that with less of a money. However, this was a first Dior eyeshadow palette that when I saw this originally, I was like that, oh, that is actually something that I could be interested in. And I have been wanting to try these one of these more like traditional luxury brand formulas, just to see what the formula is about and why these are popular, and see that if there is perhaps even for me palettes in sort of these sort of more sort of OG luxury brands that I might be interested in or I should be buying. So yeah, this was the first one. This was a bit of a random purchase, but overall I'm already going to say in the beginning that this is actually a purchase that I have been very happy about. Firstly, about the packaging and the sort of composition of the palette. So this has the clear plastic packaging. So this is the backstage line, and the backstage line is the more affordable option in Dior line, even though this isn't exactly affordable. This is 54 euros, but like I said, the quints cost around 60 euros, and actually I saw now that the limited holiday limited edition quints, those were like over 70 euros. So definitely when you consider it in the quints that you get 5 shades, and already in this one you're getting 9 shades. However, I can't speak how much you get product per gram in this pan, so it could be that the quints actually have more product in them, but for me, who has already quite a lot of eyeshadow, for me the amount that product that is in the pan, it doesn't really matter because I rarely pan an eyeshadow palette. But anyway, so this has, because this is the sort of more affordable option in the Dior line, it has the sort of clear packaging that only has the Dior logo in the front. So the Silver Essentials, there came another palette with this, which was a more fall warm toned palette. However, I have a lot of those, so that is why this was the one that particularly caught my eye. In terms of the 9 shades, so the shades have, most of these are satin shades, and this is very what I have seen and what I've researched from this sort of traditional luxury palette is that the satin formula is quite a popular option in these palettes, and I think that is because mainly of the main customer groups that buy these. So these are palettes that usually perhaps more mature women buy, or women that just want something very easy, that they only use this one palette every day, that maybe has one deepening up shade for those like night out looks. So the consumer of these palettes usually wants something convenient that is good quality, that will last, but also will fit, for example, in purse or a small makeup bag. And I think for those consumers, the sort of satin formula is actually quite a good option because it's quite foolproof. And so also in my usage that I have now, because I have used I think I have used all the shades in this. So I have also been very positively surprised that the satin formula, it is very, very effortless to use. All the looks that I have created with this have been very easy to create, even though I have layered multiple shades. The shades layer very well together. That is also something to credit this palette from. And also the color combinations in general, these all shades sort of fit together. So there isn't sort of, with this one, you don't have to be afraid that there is a shade that only goes with 1 or 2 shades. You can mix all these shades and you will get a cohesive look every time. So something then perhaps a more critique about the formula. As I said, the shades most of them are satin shades. There is this very one sparkly shimmer shade, which is this more bronzy looking in the upper row. However, this is actually a silver once you get it into eyes, so don't let this fool you. This is a silver, and that is actually the 2 sort of more shimmery shades, which also this one, I think this is also categorized technically. I can actually check one. Oh no, it's not this one. Really? Yeah. So actually, funny thing, it's this actually black one. So this black one is the other one that's categorized as shimmer, but I can also like honestly say that this is not a shimmer, it's a satin. So the only true shimmer this actually for me has is this upper one, but this also looks very silver. And if you're looking for these very impactful shimmer shades, then this is not the vibe for you. And generally, I think you are better than to stay away from these sort of like traditional department store higher end brands, because the shimmers will be more toned down. The shimmer is very pretty. When you get this to the eye, it's very beautiful, but you aren't gonna get any of these sort of, it's not a shifty multi-chrome shades like in indie brands, and it's generally not even this sort of sparkly impactful shimmer that you can get also maybe in some drugstore palettes, so, or more like mid-range palettes, so just you're aware of that. And also, if you're wanting true mattes, this doesn't have any true mattes. I think this corner shade, this very dark purplish one, this does go quite matte on your crease, but it doesn't really have like a true mattes in it, so something else you should be aware of. One shade that you do have to build a little, it's this lilac shade. However, I expected that this would be something, but actually when you get it to build, it is still something that will show up. So it will show up as a lilac, and generally it will last through the whole day. And speaking about lasting power, so when I said that this will last, well, that is also something that goes for this whole palette. So for me, what has been particularly surprised me in a positive matter is that these will last on your eyes for like, even if you have a very rough day that you wake up at 7 and you already have to be at the office at 8 and then you have some late evening activities. This is something, and I wasn't, because I sort of with some luxury, this sort of traditional luxury brand palettes, I have seen that there's been critique that the lasting power of not all of the shade is great, but in this one, I would say that the lasting power and generally the pigmentation, even though these aren't anything special in terms of color stories, the pigmentation of these is very good and they are still very effortless to work with. So that is definitely a pro for this palette. I think for a more sort of maybe a negative thing about this, however, do take this with the knowledge that this is only a 9-pan. So the looks you will get with this, there isn't a lot of versatility. So I have now done 3 shorts or reels with this. Those are all on my YouTube and they are also on my Instagram channel. So you will either get a silver, very silver or gray based look with maybe a little bit of pop of purple, or then you can use these and do some variation of a smoky eye. This is actually only a palette that I'm comfortable with doing a smoky eye because, like I said, the formula is very easy to work with and it's very effortless. So that is again a positive, but like I said, the more negative is that this is it is like limited. But then again, you are getting a 9-pan, there is only so much that even if you would get any other 9-pan that you can do with. You will get depth to your look, so these 3 shades in this upper corner will make sure that whatever look you will do is that you will get depth to your looks. But just so you're aware, there isn't like multiple styles of looks, but if you like a cooler toned smoky eye or cooler toned gray silver look, then I think this is the perfect palette for you. So for my final verdict, would I recommend this? Well, I think if you have been listening, then this is definitely also a recommendation, just like the ABH. If this is again a color story that you like, and if you are okay with it, that there isn't like dozens of looks that you can come out with this. However, definitely for the person that if you're looking for just something very quick, very easy, and something that you can rely on and you can just throw in any color combination with each of these shades, and know that you will still get a very, very cohesive and beautiful look with, then this is definitely a recommendation. And also if you have more textured or mature lids, then I would also say that these are shades that will all work for your lids and they will make everything look very smooth and very beautiful. And like I said, what was the most surprising thing for me was the durability. So these shades will last you even for the longest work days. So those were my 2 quick reviews of 2 of my sort of high-end palettes that I have been testing out lately. Comment down below, have you tried either of these palettes? What did you like about them? Or did you dislike them? Or are there any higher-end palettes that you have tried recently that you have been loving? If you like this video, then click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. And also ring the bell if you want to get notification from my new videos. I have also an Instagram channel with the same nickname, so it's a Makeup Hedgehog. So also if you want to see more content, then check that one. But other than that, I was happy that you have been watching this video, and I hope I will see you in another video soon. Bye bye!